Tonight, Prime Minister Alan Chastanet announces that the country is shut down as per COVID-19 protocol. The Bankers Association announces a moratorium on loans for an initial 3 to 6 month period, and a number of returning nationals from Dominica and the French Isles will be immediately quarantined at a hotel once they arrive in St. Lucia over the weekend. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night, it is Friday the 20th of March 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow Channel 117. The broadcast is also being simulcast on Kiss FM radio, on our mobile app, and our Caribbean Hot 7 TV Facebook page. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. The announcement has been made that St. Lucia is in shutdown mode. The message was delivered by Prime Minister Alan Chastanet during a live broadcast on Friday afternoon, where the island's workforce learned their fate as well as the changes to life in St. Lucia as we know it in response to the phenomena that is COVID-19. Rochelle Gonzalez begins our reporting.
The news that the nation awaited was finally delivered by Prime Minister Alan Chastanet on Friday afternoon. Starting on Monday the 23rd of March to the 5th of April 2020, the island will be operating under a partial shutdown. The PM explained that in light of the ongoing global COVID-19 crisis, life in general is bound to get more difficult before it gets better, and so, in the fight to contain the deadly virus and to minimize the chances of having community transmissions, there will be an island-wide closure of non-essential commercial services. Prime Minister Chastanet said the aim of the decision is to give the country the best chance of recovery. He went on to give details on the decision.
What we're proposing is to close down all non-essential commercial services. And in doing that, we believe that we're going to be able to reduce the amount of public interaction and the intensity of our economy at this point. And those commercial entities that are going to remain open are going to be expected to put in new social behaviors. So if I can take example with the Banks Association, they've spoken about limiting the number of hours that the bank is going to operate. They're also going to have a dedicated hour for elderly people. They're going to have a special line for frontline essential services staffs. And they're going to go on a rotation basis to limit the number of tellers that they're going to have. And they're also going to be trying to push as much of their operations to online operations as possible to limit that level of interaction. And also they're going to limit the number of people that could be in a bank at any one time. So a larger bank, I believe the number is 20, and I think in smaller branches the number is going to be 10.
The PM said in the cases of restaurants and bars, these too shall remain closed with the exception of establishments who deliver or offer drive-through services. He then went on to detail the way forward for the essential services.
In terms of essential services, the utilities, Wasco and Looselec and the telecoms will remain open, but again, with a revised protocol. Sanitation collection and disposal, the supermarkets and pharmacies, mini-marts and shop and bakeries, petrol stations, air and seaports will be open for cargo handling and potentially, although it is diminishing significantly, a very limited number of U.S. flights would potentially still be flying. Bus services on a limited basis, limited banking services, trucking services related to goods, and custom services will all remain operational, but again, on a scaled-down version of what they were doing. Emergency services, fire, police, as well as the private security services will remain operational. In terms of border control, again, there will be a continual tightening of any humans or passengers coming into St. Lucia.
As for the rest of the citizenry after working hours, the PM stated that there will be changes made to their lives as well.
Part of what we're going to be doing to do that is when we start this process on Monday, we're also going to be imposing a curfew. So the curfew will be from 11 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning in the first instance. I have asked the Attorney General's office and the CAPSEC to prepare the necessary legislation to authorize the government to impose that curfew. So I just want to say that the curfew is really being done for two reasons. One clearly is to enforce the social distancing that we're doing. So bars and restaurants are shut. People need to be back in their home and not gathering into large crowds. And secondly, by closing down certain commercial offices, we have to make sure that people's properties remain safe, and certainly to discourage anyone from believing that they can take advantage of this situation.
The PM said at this point in time, it is simply not feasible to completely close off the island by eliminating incoming flights, as some communication and services to and from the rest of the world is necessary. The partial shutdown will be revised upon its completion. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
The Bankers Association is assuring workers, particularly displaced workers, that measures are being put in place to ensure that their financial commitments do not overwhelm them. The association has announced a moratorium on all loans for a 3 to 6 month period for clients who so desire. The association also announced new banking hours effective Monday.
On Friday, a collective sigh was released by citizens of St. Lucia as the Bankers Association announced measures to help keep its clients' heads above water. There are many financial considerations that are weighing heavily on the minds of St. Lucians at this time as they prepare for the economic hit that everyone has warned is coming and will be brutal. How will they be able to pay their mortgages, their car loans, and other consumer loans? Carol Mangal is the president of the St. Lucia Bankers Association. She announced a moratorium on loans and says the onus is now on clients to call in to their bank.
Banks are separate entities, and you may have some banks where you opt in or others where you opt out, but you have the choice as a client to contact the bank and indicate whether you want to avail of a moratorium or whether you're okay. So, but the main point is all banks will be able to facilitate you, whether it's for 3 months or 6 months. And as I said earlier, as time passes, we will reassess the situation and determine what we need to do next. Do we need to go to 9 months? Do we need to go to 18 months? Because there have been talk of that.
The Bankers Association will also introduce new banking hours as part of its operations during the national shutdown of the country. As an essential service, its workers will take on a shift system for shorter hours, and only limited numbers will be allowed in the banks at any given time.
We will be open from 8 to 12 noon, Monday to Friday. During that time, from 8 to 9, we will be servicing only the elderly and people who are at risk, and also people who are differently abled, as well as pregnant women. So we will have that period strictly for them. From 9 to 12, we will service the general public. During the time we are servicing the general public, we will also have a dedicated line, which we normally do for the elderly. We will have that for the persons who are on the front line in the essential services.
Again, please note that new banking hours are 8 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday to Friday. For small branches, only 10 people will be permitted at one time. For larger branches, 20 people. General lending services and account opening services are suspended effective immediately. Night deposit services will still be available. Mangal noted that the St. Lucia Bankers Association has come in for high praise from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for being at the forefront of preparation for this COVID-19 crisis, having engaged in dialogue with government very early on.
Hold on to your money and only buy what is essential. That was one of the passionate messages by Prime Minister Alan Shastney as he urged households to brace for the significant drop in income.
The island's Prime Minister Alan Shastney has called on households to scale back and ensure that they have cash so they can manage for at least 6 months while the country takes a major economic blow. He says rationing will be key.
The rationing is because our income levels are going to come down. And people cannot continue to believe that they're going to live at the standard that they have pre-corona. So for the time being, I'm asking St. Lucians to be very careful of what they're consuming and what they're spending. I can only suggest to you that you must hold on to your cash in order to be able to pay for essential items. This is not a time to be spending money on luxury items.
He appealed to people's consideration to not engage in panic buying and hoarding to allow the assistance programs that will be rolled out to be effective in meeting the needs of the most vulnerable.
We have to work together. And similarly, the government must be in a position to have enough resources to help the more vulnerable and the people who are going to be unemployed, to basically be able to provide them with a minimum amount of money to be able to buy food and to be able to take care of the people in their households. So when people are rushing out to buy endless supplies of product because they're fearful or scared, what you're doing is you're hurting your own fellow St. Lucians. We have to be in this together.
The Prime Minister is giving his full support to purchasing limits being implemented by supermarket chains. He assured that support in the form of assistance packages is coming after the 2-week scaling down of commercial activity on island as part of a shutdown. He says the government is working hard behind the scenes to ride out the COVID-19 crisis.
The Department of Labor says an investigation is ongoing to determine whether the right procedures were followed where hotel staff layoffs are concerned. The Labor Department says they understand that COVID-19 fears are heightened, but they will discuss with unions to get a better understanding of what they are going through, as well as what stimulus packages can be put in place to assist during these difficult times.
A letter is being circulated on many social media platforms of the dismissal of many workers at a particular resort on island, effective today, Friday, March 20th. The Department of Labor is weighing on the situation and promising intervention to ensure that workers are treated fairly.
Of course, we have been notified and we are in receipt of the correspondence now in public circulation in reference to the untimely dismissal of some employees here on St. Lucia in response to the COVID-19 situation. The Department of Labor and the Labor Commissioner's Office is always very, very saddened when our St. Lucian workers find themselves on the breadline. It is always a saddening situation, especially now to come when we are experiencing a global health crisis.
The department does understand that the COVID-19 pandemic has started to have and will continue to have adverse effects on the tourism and hospitality sector. However, they are adamant that the right procedures need to be followed when staff members are being laid off.
We're investigating the matter. We cannot say that the correct procedures were followed or were not followed at this time. It is very preliminary. With reference to other hotels, I think the Prime Minister has said that the anticipation is 3 hotels will be immediately affected by this situation. However, it's an ongoing and it's a very fluid situation, one that we must continue to monitor from our end at the Labor Department.
The department is planning to meet with the various employees' union to assess the effect that this situation has been having on workers and to brief them on the measures that have been put in place by the government to help them ride out such a difficult period of time.
We're also very, very, very soon going to be meeting with the employers of St. Lucia, the Employers Federation, and the other employers groupings to get an assessment of the impact on them, to also hear from them what their concerns are, and to express to them what the government's position is as it relates to employment and labor and this whole coronavirus.
The Department of Labor is calling for all employees to stick together and assures them that the Labor Department will do all in its power to ensure that as many people remain above the breadline. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, from hotel to quarantine site, Starfish will facilitate returning nationals over the weekend. The St. Lucia Manufacturers Association ramps up production and keeping education on the front burner during the shutdown. That and more after the break.